Welcome back. So as you've seen, current psychological practice uses symptoms to diagnose disorders. That's mainly because we simply don't know much about the causes. What we do know is that the causes are almost certainly very complex. They're probably a mixture of biological influences, like our individual genetics, brain structure, and chemistry that is the result of our evolutionary history and development. Psychological influences like stress, trauma, experiences that we go through in childhood or repeated experiences through adolescence. And finally, social cultural influences, the roles we play in society, the expectations others place on us, and of course the diseases themselves are defined by normality and disorder, which as we've seen are really just social and political judgments made by the field of psychology today. As an example, we can look at the proposed causes for something like social anxiety disorder. Under Barlow's triple vulnerability theory, anxiety disorders develop as a combination of many factors. To begin with, the person who's susceptible to these kind of disorders might have a generalized biological vulnerability. That is, their nervous system may be simply particularly sensitive. They have a low threshold for startle responses and a high sensitivity to the sorts of things that might cause them to go into a threat situation, some kind of register of an alarm. Further, that same person might have a generalized psychological vulnerability. That is, over the course of their life, they may have developed beliefs about the world that says the world is a dangerous place or we have very little control over events. And then they may have, through the course of their life, developed specific psychological vulnerabilities. Maybe they have been repeatedly embarrassed in front of others or humiliated as a child by a class bully. So that specific psychological vulnerability, combined with the generalized psychological vulnerability, and this general biological sensitivity to threat and alarms, combine, when under stress, in current conditions, to lead to a social anxiety disorder. It's very important to note here, though, that many people, in fact most people, don't become mentally disordered. Although over 25% of us will experience some sort of diagnosable mental disorder at some point in our lives, most of us, through most of our lives, achieve what is considered to be normal function. Fact is, all of us have some degree of what's called resilience, and that is a protective factor against the risk factors. It's unclear why, when exposed to some traumatic event, one person might develop a post-traumatic stress disorder, while the other person may be disturbed for a short period of time and then go on and resume normal function. That difference is something we call resilience. Resilience is a personality trait that counteracts the specific risk factors of these various psychological disorders. One final note about mental disorders in general is that they often co-occur, and we call this co-occurrence comorbidity. And that is, most people suffering from a diagnosable mental disorder are diagnosable with more than one disorder. So you can see from this table, in fact, the largest number of people do only have a single diagnosable disorder, but lots of people have two, many people have three, and some have four or more disorders co-occurring at one time. So we call this comorbidity, and it often occurs in specific patterns, which we'll hear more about when we talk about the specific disorders in the next online sequence. But for instance, many people who suffer from depression are also diagnosable with some sort of anxiety disorder. These things tend to co-occur or be comorbid. So that concludes this week's online lesson on psychological disorders. Don't forget to take the little quiz afterwards. That will count as your clicker points for today's session. The online session for Psychological Disorders 2 is live right now. You can go ahead and continue it, or you can wait till during or after spring break to do that online lesson, but because the two are so closely related, I've decided to make them live together. But I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you enjoy your upcoming spring break. I'll see you soon.